Hello and welcome to A Week in Watches, episode 63, our weekly look back at the people, watches, and stories from the industry. My name is Blake Bettner, I'm the managing editor of Worn & Wound.
And I'm Zach Weiss, co-founder of Worn & Wound.
We have a special episode for you today, as evidenced by the two of us sitting here. We're going to talk about some of the new releases from Geneva Watches Days, as well as maybe a couple of other things. Before we get to any of that, a huge shout out to our sponsor of this week's episode, Shinola. We have a new video from Shinola that we'll be presenting midway through this video, so be sure you stay tuned for that, as well as a special message from them at the end of the video. Let's jump in. Before we get to the Geneva Watch Days, Seiko has been pretty busy these last couple of weeks. One watch in particular seems to have caught the attention of enthusiasts everywhere. This is a new Alpinist GMT. They brought the 6R54 into the Alpinist range. We last saw this in the Prospects Diver range. Seems to make a lot of sense here.
A lot of sense. Yeah, I mean, you might even argue perhaps this is the place they should have debuted this GMT movement. I mean, it's a natural fit for a adventure watch, as well as a watch with a compass bezel. Yeah. And something I was thinking about with this was that it's a great use actually for a collar GMT rather than the flyer GMT, because a compass bezel is basically used with a 24-hour hand, or most easily. Yeah. And that's how I'd sort of see this watch. You know?
Yeah, it makes a lot more practical sense. Absolutely, I agree. It's a natural fit here, and they've made a few kind of subtle changes. I know this is kind of a range within the Prospects collection. I know I use the Alpinist name. I don't know if they officially attach that name to these watches anymore, but of course that's kind of
Prospects.
It's a Prospects, yeah. They've moved the date into kind of a smaller circular window at 4:30 to kind of move it out of the way, which I think is kind of nice. And as you mentioned, it's a collar style GMT, which I think works thematically just fine with this. I think there's a couple of different colorways here. It's being offered at
more coming every day.
And more coming. Yes, you just showed me a lovely white.
Yeah, there's a 110th anniversary. I literally saw it this morning. So
you don't say. So this one is being offered at $1,150. These are available now. I think these are really sharp watches, though. I know we're all pretty fond of the Alpinist collection, Alpinist design style.
I feel like this is like the next sort of staple in that collection. You know, you reviewed the original one in the green and gold. That was like the original version of the Alpinist, the iconic. I feel like this is the new generation, especially with that external steel bezel too, which gives it a little bit more of a sportier vibe.
Yeah, it's still such like an unusual character here.
Totally.
Not only for Seiko, but just kind of in this whole genre altogether. It's just kind of still doing its own thing. 100%. Which I love to see. All right, we've got more details on that watch now live at wornandwound.com, as well as the rest of the watches that we're going to talk about, I'll be honest with you. So if any of these sound fun and interesting to you, be sure to go over to wornandwound.com. You can read a lot more on each of these. All right, so I'm just returning from Geneva, where I saw most of these watches in person. There's one big one that they did not have there, unfortunately, but it was still interesting. I was at the press release that they released today, so we can kick off with this one. This is the only watch reveal. Most of the collection was revealed earlier this summer. Some of the collabs played a little bit tighter of the chest here, so this was one of them that was revealed at Geneva Watch Days publicly last week with Edward Milan of Moser and Max Buser of MB&F. So this is a collaborative one-off watch, and they made a new caliber for this watch that's based off a minute repeater that Moser makes. But there's a few unique details here and some of the, let's call it brevity, that MB&F brings to the table with their watch.
Interesting.
It's called the Pandemonium Streamliner, and it features a small white gold panda that's been hand painted. It's 5 millimeters tall, that sits on the dial, and it's got a pair of headphones on, and it's kind of like doing the DJ thing at the hammers of the chiming mechanism. So as they turn, there's like these little record icons that turn with it. I don't know what to make of this thing, what you call it.
So those are like the axes of the hammers and they turn?
Yeah, so he's there doing this, and as the hammers chime the minutes and hours, they all move. So thematically it works. This, of course, has the kind of flying buttress bridge that suspends the balance over the dial, and it's got the time up at 2 o'clock, which kind of feels like, I guess we'll put some hands on there.
So they've worked together before, MB&F and Moser, so they've had that sort of mix of Moser minimalism with MB&F legacy machine aesthetic, or where you're raising the balance above the dial, and then but this time, I mean, the whole revelatory moment is that they've made it a minute repeater for the first time. I'm trying to remember if MB&F has never done a minute repeater legacy machine. Is that correct?
That's correct. It's in a streamliner case. Though. So it's kind of a mismatch of a lot of the components that they've done together or even on their own put into one case here. It's got a blue Fume dial. It all comes together like pretty beautifully. It's steel, which provides better acoustics here.
Which is funny because I also heard titanium provides better acoustics from other people, and you hear different things from different folks.
Yeah, I'm far from an expert on these mechanisms, but that's what they said, and they had to alter the. I guess there's kind of like these steel rings that encircle the dial that the hammers actually strike, and it's the vibrations there that create the sound. So they had to alter those to kind of fit with the bridge. There's a lot going on in the dial, but it's a fun watch. Their estimate is $300,000 to $400,000 at the Only Watch auction. Of course, there's only one of these. I suspect it'll go a little bit higher.
I think it'll go higher. This is sort of definitely like a piece de resistance for the brands, and just something quite exceptional. And it's funny, I don't always love this sort of sense of humor when it's injected into the super high end here, but I feel like this is a really nice version of it because the watch and the dial and everything, this is a really top of the line, high end, haute couture watchmaking, and that tiny little figurine just sort of is just kind of like, chill out. We're still people. We still have like senses of humor.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's kind of fun, but I would also love to see it without it too. Like I feel like it's such an exceptional watch. I actually like the way the minimalist dial there works with the streamliner case almost more than I've liked it in previous versions.
It does. It all comes together in a way better than it maybe probably should, but it does somehow. Edward and Max Moser are quite close friends, so I doubt this will be the last thing that we see them. So, hats off to them for creating things like this that they know they can raise a ton of money for.
And these will be coming through the city in a couple of weeks, I believe.
Yes, there's a schedule. There's cities all over the world. LA, if you're anywhere near like a big populated area, it might be coming, so check the Only Watch website for more details on that. All right, so let's move on. I guess we can maybe keep it on the ridiculous, over-the-top high end before we come back down to earth a little bit.
Sure.
There's another collaboration at Geneva Watch Days that was shown for the first time publicly. This was between our friend William Messina and an independent watchmaker by the name of Sylvain Pinode, who we met and saw his work a couple of years ago in Geneva, and came away very impressed, I think, with this watch. This is a different platform. He makes a monopusher chronograph, and the monopusher is in the crown itself. It's kind of an industrial steampunkish case. William Messina liked that movement a lot, so ordered one for himself, but with a different case design. But it eventually evolved to the point of they thought they would make 10 of them. So this is now a Messina Lab, Sylvain Pinode collaboration, using that monopusher chronograph movement in a slightly more classic-looking case. This watch was pretty stunning in person, I gotta say. It's a 42mm titanium watch. It's got the top half of it is kind of like a top hat sapphire that has a viewing window on the side and through the top. It's kind of exposed the chronograph works on the bottom half of the dial. And then it closes off the top half where it has a dial that's made by the same maker that Carly Victorinen uses. So there's a mature feel to this watch. It doesn't feel kind of like all-out exotic, but there's a very kind of fine watchmaking element to it. I thought it was really gorgeous in person.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Only 10 of them, though, unfortunately, and $130,000. But the fact that this is being made and that guys like William Messina go from working from the likes of Unimatic to someone like Sylvain Pinode to put a spotlight on it, who's someone that I think we all agree we should all be paying more attention to.
Big up-and-coming independent.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this will hopefully kind of bring his status up where it probably should be. This is one of those chronographs that you can hardly tell you're pressing a button, and it's already started. So it's got a great feel.
It's obviously a column wheel, which you can see, I believe at 6 o'clock. Yeah, I really love the aesthetic of this watch. I feel like it mixes sort of like the Ferdinand Berthaud sort of feeling, like you're saying, there's sort of like something scientific and industrial about it, with just love of the complexity of movements that you're getting now from like Chapek and the Retropont with the top side chronograph functionality there, little floating dials, and of course it has one of my favorite watch dial features, such as this one, which is the eccentric, off-centered hour and minute hand. So that's up at 12. Yeah. So like the chronograph and the time are completely separated, which is just something I always love to see. Yeah, I don't know. It's just an absolutely stunning watch. I'm a little jealous that I got to see this one in person.
Yeah, hopefully we'll get to see one. Maybe get to spend some time with one in the office. Yeah.
Well, presumably Messina will have one, so we'll just make him come by.
He has one. Yeah. We'll get him on to talk about it, maybe the process of what that was like. I know this was a few years in the works, but very impressive watch there. We've got some hands-on shots of that now live. To commemorate 10 years of American design and manufacturing, Shinola Detroit is proud to share this video that reveals the company and its employees as a team that can carve a distinct pathway forward with their own sense of, as they say, timeless American design. This cinematic video gives an insider glimpse of their watchmakers assembling timepieces, soaring views of the Detroit headquarters, and shares perspective on the past decade as well as Shinola's aims for the future. Learn more about Shinola's timeless American design, their latest watch and apparel releases at the link below.
How do you make an icon? Simple answer is, you don't. You just make something for the right reasons. Asking yourself, would you use it? Will it last? Is there any way to make it better? You steer clear of fads and trends and the latest. Building what you love in the way you believe in. And if you do all that, the things you make will find their place. So what do you call that? We call it Shinola.
Let's take a step back down, but not totally back down to earth yet. This is a new watch from Ressence.
So that's a small step down.
A small step down.
In price, not really in concept or execution.
Yeah, we're getting there, though, I promise. This is a new Type 3 EE. This is one of two oil-filled watches that they make. And this is kind of like the true... maybe that's not fair to say, a true Ressence experience, the oil-filled case. It really kind of brings the visual, very unique...
it's like extra Ressence.
Extra Ressence, yeah. I would say, the rock system that rotates the dial components is obviously the kind of signature Ressence experience. The case being filled with oil brings all of those elements right up to the dial, so it looks like it's literally printed on the dial.
I think they call it augmented readability or something. They have some really nice turn of phrase on their website, which
it's almost jarring to see in person, especially when you start setting it and moving it and things like that. But this one is quite lovely. This is a watch that they've done in black and white before, and continue a theme that you first talked about in the last watch that you reviewed from them.
The 8S.
Yeah, the 8S with the sage dial. This brings a eucalyptus green dial. It brings a certain quality that kind of juxtaposes this rotating elements here that we associate with these kind of very stark, like black and white colorways. To see such a subtle, soft, thoughtful approach brought to this is really kind of takes it into a new area. I know you had a similar experience with.
They picked these really delicate greens. I mean, the sage green was really like a relaxing, calming color. Nothing aggressive about it. I believe greens and blues have a sort of literally tranquil aspect to them that can actually help you calm down, kind of a thing. And Ressence is really leaning into those sorts of greens. And the eucalyptus, also channels that, but has a little, I didn't see it in person, but it has what appears to be a little bit more of like a matte quality to it, a little bit more of a, almost a flat quality, which is then projected up, so the watch doesn't look flat, but the color itself is sort of even in a very,
and it doesn't jump out. Definitely a calming experience because it's almost a slight desaturation.
That's a good thing.
But it's something that just kind of pulls you in, which is a theme that I think we'll start to see them maybe explore throughout their range of watches, which of course would be welcome. Maybe getting into some earth tones would be kind of nice to see from them. I think they could take some of these watches in really interesting directions. One of which is their only watch example as well, which kind of makes a pattern that all has to connect. So it only connects at midnight. Or it's kind of this big giant X, but as all the pieces start rotating, they all become misaligned. So
something that's very unique about their watches is that can happen. I mean, they previously did a version, also green dial, where half of the dial was matte and half the dial was brushed. Remember, they had those special series, so only one time a day is it kind of like this mirror image. Other times it's just pieces of texture around.
It's a very organic feeling. It's always changing every time you look down. So very cool experience, and I'd love to see Ressence doing these kind of things.
Or the Type 3 in general. I think there's something in my review that I try to emphasize is that like the special thing about Ressence is all kind of internal. You really can't see it. It's the resulting effect is sort of on the outside, and you sort of take for granted what's going on inside. And with the oil-filled ones, it's really even more poignant because, basically you can't just fill a mechanical movement with oil. That'll drown it. It won't move. So there's essentially an oil-filled region and then an open region. The connection is magnetic, so the rocks system is driven by magnets. And then because oil expands and contracts due to the change in temperature, there's actually micro bellows in the oil-filled area to deal with the expansion and contraction, which is it's absolutely insane.
It's incredible when you to think about, and when other brands like HYT that also utilize a bellows that have a liquid-filled element under the dial to account. Of course, air will expand as you go up, or the reduced pressure, or it will condense as you're, for instance, under the water. So even small changes can have a huge effect on these things. So there's the solutions that they come up with without altering your experience of the watch. I think it's really incredible.
I had an EZM2, Sin EZM2, which is an oil-filled watch. It's all quartz though, and when it's really cold out, a bubble would form in it, and this gets around that. Because it's counteracting that, which is just so clever.
It's a seamless experience. So hats off to Ressence for this one. This is available this is part of the regular collection, by the way. It's not a limited edition or anything like that. It's $38,200. A steep price, but a pretty interesting experience nonetheless. It's worth appreciating.
Certainly different.
So, all right, let's move on to something from Oris. They released a new Aquis. This is the Aquis Pro. This is the most extreme Aquis to date. This is a 4,000 meter diver that is 13,123 feet. That's just a few feet shy of 2.5 miles that this thing can go down and survive. It's a titanium case, 49.5 millimeters in diameter, 23 millimeters thick. We've seen some other like ultra deep divers recently from the likes of Omega and Rolex, who of course are no kind of strangers to this territory. So Oris entering with something that's maybe a little more approachable price-wise. It's still $6,200. It's not cheap by any stretch, but quite capable if you're into that kind of a thing, if you're into like kind of the extreme ends of these tool watches.
This is the only one of these watches I've actually gotten to see in person as well, because they did have it at Watches and Wonders, where we were sworn to secrecy, of course. It's funny, obviously it's very large, it's very thick, it has this like crazy capability of 4,000 meters, but I think we were all taken by the style of it, which felt a little different for Oris. Like there was something sort of like graphic 90s kind of fun about the colors of the blues that are used. There's like a wave texture on the dial, and it just like it was oddly fun, you know. And it's so chunky. I mean, it feels like a submersible, whereas some watches feel like watches that can go deep. This feels like something that's meant for the water you happen to be able to strap on, which I like that.
Yeah, it goes kind of beyond the point of ridiculousness. But there's something very fun about this. The color of the dial looks really great in person, and it kind of fades into a black at the edge. The mechanism that the bezel uses puts this kind of black ring, so you have to pull up and then turn, so you're not going to accidentally twist anything.
Yeah. It's a really good system. I feel like they don't get enough credit actually for their bezel locking system, and they haven't used it in a little while, because I feel like the Aquis Pro line used to be used a little bit more often, and now it seems like they're bringing it back here. But it's just a really simple locking system for a bezel,
Yeah, it's not finicky. You don't have to press anything else like that to get it unlocked. It's a pretty fluid motion for when you're
presumably with a 4,000
meters under
or something. When you're 4,000.
I tell you, it's hard to manipulate little things with those neoprene gloves on underwater. So I wouldn't want my life depending on it, maybe. But if you're going to just set it and then kind of track your depth time according to your dive plan, then you'd be good to go with this one and go as deep as you dare. Pretty cool watch from Oris there. And that's not the only dive watch that we saw. This next dive watch, though, is maybe the exact opposite of the Oris. Is from Doxa. It's the Sub 300 Beta. I think is that symbol. This is a black ceramic Sub 300. And when I say black, it is almost entirely black.
Matte black, right?
There's some gold accents.
So like 18 karat, like solid gold
18
accents.
Gold, yes. This is just shy of $7,000. I mean, it's a Doxa Sub 300 that you know. It has kind of a rough textured black dial, the smooth ceramic black case, black bezel insert, black date.
Black date. Black
date
on black
disc,
date it is.
Black date printing.
Yeah.
This is a very cheeky watch, I will say. If you like Doxa dive watches for their kind of historic tool nature. This might be a bit of an anomaly to you within their collection. I think this is very much trying to pull a different kind of person into the Doxa realm.
Different kind of person, or just be the sort of ultra eccentric version of the Doxa. I feel like it's the kind of thing, we look back and we see these military Doxas from the 60s, and you're like, can you believe this ever existed? Like, this is going to be that in some 50 years. It'll be like, they really made that? That's wild. Doxa?
It is wild, and it's all about the experience. This isn't the one that you're going to go to impress your dive buddies on your swimming trip or anything like that. This is more of
really be like, you're crazy. That's awesome.
Yes,
go diving in that. You can't see anything.
You can't. Yeah. Who needs any of that? But if you want it to fit kind of a certain style that you're going for, then this is certainly a unique option. So.
I do really like the gold sawtooth bezel edge. I feel like that looks really cool.
Yeah.
There's something quite villainous about this. I feel like if you're wearing like a black tuxedo with a black shirt and like you're going for that thing, like this is sort of the accent piece to that.
Okay. And maybe a trilby hat.
I don't even know what that is, but yeah, sure.
Okay.
Oh, is that the Odd Job
That's
hat?
the Odd Job.
Just joking. I feel like this would be Odd Job's watch because he could like cut something with it.
Yeah, it's got a slightly aggressive, but still kind of dressed up feel to it. So we'd love to hear your thoughts on this one. I have a feeling this is a watch that you there's no middle ground here. Yeah. You're the feeling.
The people out there who want to buy it know they want to buy it, and they probably already bought it or talked to somebody about buying it, and everyone else. You don't need to think about it. You don't have to worry.
You're deeply offended by it. Or are you ready?
Or like this, finally, Doxa made that watch.
Yeah, exactly. It's a cool watch, maybe, or a horrible watch. We're here for your take. Let us know down in the comments. And then finally, I just want to give a shout out to Bethune. They had a new kind of blue watch. They do these kind of blue watches, but they're not kind of blue. They're entirely blue.
Yeah, they're really blue.
To the extreme. Yeah. So that's kind of the fun there. This is the DB28 XP, so it's their ultra flat movement and case here, which is just quite the experience. So Bethune watches are kind of hard to describe, and you don't really get the full sense of them for appreciation in photographs, but how the case kind of articulates, the lug structures integrated in the case, it's really a special experience, and this one in particular was just absolutely dynamite. I love seeing this from Bethune. And hopefully we'll see more stuff like this outside of the kind of blue. I would love to see just a regular production version of the DB28. All right, that is our episode. Huge thanks again to Shinola for sponsoring this week's episode. As a reminder, you'll be able to see a selection of Shinola watches and goods at the Wind Up Watch Fair in New York, which is coming up October 20th to 22nd at the Altman Building, 135 West 18th Street in New York. He'll be there. I'll be there. We'd love to see you there.
That's going to be an epic time.
Yeah, absolutely. That is our show this week. Thanks so much for tuning in. If you're not subscribed, now's a great time to do so. And if you enjoy this content, please be sure to leave a like and a share. It helps us out a lot. And until next time, take care.